In the spirit of reconciliation, Up Past Bedtime would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the incredible lands in which we record this podcast. By extension, we pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, their past and present elders, and the connection they have to Australia's land, sea, and community. Hello and welcome back to Up Past Bedtime. I'm Bella Messina and I am going to be staying up late with you tonight. Up, double drop. Up, double drop. Oh, that just gave me the ick. Doing that just gave me the ick. But it is week 1 of season 4. But this is episode 2 because I decided to do a double drop. I say the word I loosely. My podcast manager, Mel, was the one who put forward the idea of the double drop ep. And I kind of combated it at first. I was like, I don't know, I think it's too much if we drop 2 episodes at once. And she was like, no, I think people have missed having you in their ears for the last couple of months. Let's give them 2 eps in the first week. So if you hate it, blame Mel. And if you love it, say thank you to Mel. I love yapping either way, so it doesn't really affect me. But I am very grateful for all of you who have come over to the second episode to listen. We are doing a chat that is something that has really played on my mind in the last 12 months, but especially recently. And the thing that we are diving into tonight is the concept of the fine print of adulthood. All those things that apparently everyone knows about becoming an adult, but nobody tells us and nobody talks about it. Taxes, pap smears, co-parenting, superannuation, insurance, breakups, divorce settlements. The list goes on and on and on and on. Obviously, I could not go through every bit of fine print that has to do with becoming an adult. A lot of it, I would be here for I could probably do a whole season just on adulthood fine print. No one get any ideas. But I did want to talk about some of the fine print things that I have been going through lately and things that I sort of wish that people had talked about more and shared more, and just had a big girly chat with me about some of these topics that I really have been blindsided by. So I thought, let's talk about it. The hidden causes, the things you only learn the hard way, and why I think adulthood should come with a manual, or at the very least, a podcast episode. Welcome to season 4 of Up Past Bedtime with me, Bella Messina. This season, we're doing more real, more raw, more unfiltered late night chats that should feel like a conversation with your bestie. I'll be talking about everything: life, love, motherhood, and the messy middle of figuring out your 20s and 30s. So let's get right to oversharing, shall we? Because honestly, the best conversations always happen when you're up past bedtime. But before we get into all of that, it is time for my nightstand must-have for the week. I am going to try and keep my nightstand must-haves on theme. If there is a theme for the week or an episode topic for the week, I'm going to try and keep it within that sort of domain. Tonight's nightstand must-have is technically not on my nightstand. Mine is in my office and in my kitchen, but you could definitely put one on your nightstand and probably be very helpful. And that is the Skylight calendar. Now, yes, I did work with Skylight on my personal Instagram account like a couple of weeks ago. But this product is actually insane. It is so good. It was recommended to me when I showed my calendar. I had this massive whiteboard calendar that I was working off and that I used every single month. And I shared it on Instagram, just being like, this is, a product that I love. It's a $20, whiteboard calendar. And I'm not kidding. I got hundreds of DMs from people being like, oh my God, you need to try the Skylight calendar. You need to get a Skylight calendar. The Skylight calendar is the best. You can download just the Skylight app and use that by itself. But when I was talking about it and sharing wow, I'm getting so many recommendations of the Skylight calendar. Should I go and get one and try it out? I did actually have Skylight reach out to us and they're like, let us send you one. And I was like, okay, sure, bet, let's go. And I started using it and I am obsessed. When it comes to adulthood and organizing your life, it is pretty epic. I think it is a really great like family sort of tool, because there's like things on it where you can track routines, you can do like reward charts on it, you can do chore charts on it, you can do grocery shopping on it. It doubles as like an electronic photo frame, and then it has the calendar section, and you can make like all different profiles for people, and the Skylight calendar actually syncs with your Google Calendar. So like all my work stuff goes on there. It's like honestly just like a little hub of organization, and I love it. It is incredible, and it is my product recommendation of the week. If you need to up level your adulthood game, you feel like things are falling apart a little bit, the Skylight calendar. Okay, now that my recommendation of the week is done, let's get chatting. Now, I was saying before that there was something in my real life that kind of triggered this discussion, the discussion around the things of adulthood that no one tells you. Now, it's not going to come as a surprise to anyone that my marriage breakdown was sort of the pinnacle, like the starting point of like this whole realization that there is so much of adulthood you don't know about. Because I feel like me leaving my marriage has been like the center point of so much learning in the last 12 months. But I'm going to be really honest here. I was very sheltered in my marriage. I'm really embarrassed to say that. I don't like admitting it. I don't like admitting that I was very sheltered. I didn't have a lot of like financial responsibility or like a big adult responsibility when I was married. In hindsight, do I think it was a good thing? No, I think it was very irresponsible for me to do, because it meant that I didn't learn a lot of things in the timelines that other people were learning them. And it also put me in a really precarious position when I left my marriage. But it is the truth of the matter. And I know that it is a truth a lot of people fall into. But yeah, I when I was married, I was really domestic focused, right? And that was kind of how my marriage was set up. I really was in charge of like the home and scheduling and appointments and all of that, baby raising, and that was really my domain. And a lot of the like adult admin, I call pretty much like tasks that everyone just like has to do that aren't associated with work. They're just like associated with your life. I call that like admin or life admin, house admin, adult admin, whatever. A lot of that type of stuff was not in my responsibility bin. We could do a whole other episode around that and why I think that was the case and why things got structured that way, but it is not the time to talk about that topic today. But yeah, I never paid a bill. I didn't register my own car. I didn't talk to banks. I didn't do a lot of things. I didn't know about rates. I didn't know about water. I didn't know about anything to do with anything legal as an adult. You know, my taxes were done with my ex-husband's business taxes. Like my personal taxes were done at the same time by the same accountant. Like there was just a lot of stuff that was like taken care of for me. I'd never booked in even a service for my car because like that was all done. That was not considered a me job. And instead of me being curious and asking to do it anyway and, you know, learning about it, I was lazy and I was naive and I was silly. And I just was like, oh, great, I don't have to do that. Perfect. I'm not going to do it. And I didn't for a decade. So since I was like 19, I didn't do any of that stuff by myself. I didn't do it at all. I didn't know how to do it. If I needed that stuff done, I would just ask him to do it. And that kind of led to the biggest slap in the face reality check at 28, 29 years old, when I suddenly didn't have that person doing all that stuff for me. And, you know, I didn't have that person I was dependent on there. And I was like, holy shit, there is so much stuff that needs to be done that I haven't been doing. And yes, I know that sounds like I was an absolute privileged airhead, silly Billy. And I was, but I, you know, sometimes to make myself not feel as negative about the whole realization, I do remind myself, like as a stay-at-home mom, in reverse, there were a lot of things to do with parenting and child raising that my, you know, ex-husband didn't know because he wasn't doing it, because I was doing the majority of it. It's very common, I guess, in traditional set-up marriages for it to be that way. And if you stay together and you stay married, it's fine for it to continue to be that way. But if in my case you don't, it really leads you in a very challenging situation. And I kind of naively thought that as time would go on, that I would not be always feeling so overwhelmed with all the little bits of fine print coming up. And that has not been the case. I think another big contributing factor is like I was in a long-term relationship or a serious relationship since I was 18, right? So I've always had someone who shared life admin tasks with me because we've always lived together, and I've just always had a second person there. And, you know, I think that's the benefit of when you're coupled is there's two people to share the load with of everything, you know. There's always an extra set of hands so you don't have to do everything by yourself. Now I'm kind of going through the situation where that isn't happening and every bit of life admin job is on me, plus extras now, like I'm actively going through a divorce. That's massive fine print that I didn't know about. I'm, you know, single mothering. I'm running my own businesses or, you know, working for myself. I'm a sole trader. So yeah, there's like all this stuff where I'm like, when was anyone meant to learn all of this? Like, when are we meant to be told about all of this? On top of that, I've been on a huge health journey recently that I'm like, hello, when was anyone telling us about all this stuff we've meant to be been doing in terms of our health? Like, I've just been live, laugh, loving, early 20s, not really taking anything about my health seriously because I was like, I'm going to live forever and I'm going to be young and fit and healthy forever. And then like, I'm still young and pretty fit and pretty healthy, but like I'm, you know, coming into my 30s now and I'm starting to be like, oh shit, if I'm already at my 30s, like soon I'm going to be in my 40s and then soon after that I'm going to be in my 50s. Maybe I should start taking some stuff a bit more seriously. And it kind of made me just realize that a lot of being an adult is just problem solving 24/7. And I kind of thought if I could share a bit of the things that I've learned and the problems that I've solved over the last 12 months, then maybe I can reduce a little bit of problem solving for someone else. So I'm going to break the conversation down into 3 little fine print sections: the body clauses, the emotional fine print, and the financial reality check. 3 big areas that I have learnt a lot about that I didn't realize was a thing until I started learning about it. So let's cut to the chase. As women, there is a lot of maintenance that goes into us being us. And I have really been going through a lot of body maintenance recently. I've been doing a lot of health work. I have shared on the podcast, you know, that I got diagnosed with ASD. I got diagnosed with ADHD. I'm, you know, pretty much diagnosed with PMDD now, just doing like the final bits of that. And I have also been sharing online, you know, I've been doing a lot of work on my posture. I've been having some like back and posture pain. I've had 2 children, and with that becomes a lot of stuff with postpartum. I've been sharing that I've been doing a scar release process. So I had 2 C-sections. My first was emergent. It was a category 1 with my oldest daughter, Rosie. And since having my second C-section, I think a combination of like the first being emergent, the second just being like on top of the scar that was already there, I have had like significant pouching in my stomach, and I don't like it. I had considered maybe I should get a tummy tuck. Maybe I should get a breast reduction and a tummy tuck. I looked up the costing. It was like $35,000. I was like, wow, I could start squirreling some money away for that, but it's not going to be ready for a good couple of years. I'm not going to have a spare $35,000 to spend on a tummy tuck and breast reduction anytime soon. Plus, I'm not 100% sure I don't want any more kids. I'm like 90% sure there, but I've still got that little lingering 10% in the back of my head. And I'm just like, well, I can't get like major abdominal surgery and then want to go on and have another baby. I just feel like that would be a bit risky, especially someone like me who's going to be having another C-section if I had another baby. But it kind of has led me into the whole idea of like pap smears, mammograms, physio, like pelvic floor physio. Did we know this was a thing? Like, apparently we were meant to be doing that after having our kids. I was like, huh? Since when? Like, what do you mean that you're meant to be letting a physio put their little fingers inside of you and release muscles in your vagina? Huh? I feel like the last year when I've been putting so much effort into my health, like seeing a naturopath, seeing a nutritionist because, I got on Vyvanse, and then the Vyvanse made me lose a whole bunch of weight. And then I started experiencing malnutrition because at the same time I was also going through a divorce. So I had lots of stress, weight loss. And then that was causing extreme thrush. So then I was going to the gyno all the time because, I'm getting thrush after thrush after thrush, and I'm having to get these like bulk prescriptions for bloody thrush tablets, and I'm getting thrush creams, and then I'm having issues with that. And like, these are all things where I'm like, hang on a minute, how are we meant to just know all of this? Like, how are we meant to know to like take care of our body? And it kind of triggered for me, like the last time I was getting my scar release process, which is pretty much I've been seeing this acupuncturist, remedial masseuse, in this like mother's clinic in Brisbane. And pretty much what it is they go and like release all the muscles in your abdominal, and they also work on breaking down the scar tissue that is sitting behind a C-section scar. And then you also get some like acupuncture done, and it's just meant to like loosen it up, reduce the amount of scar tissue that's sitting behind your scar, and for me just like reduce the back and hip pain that I've gotten from my C-sections, and also reduce the pouching. Right. And when I was getting this done, I was talking to the therapist who was helping me, and we were just kind of discussing postpartum care, really, and just female healthcare in general, and just how there is so much about it that we are not told and is not prioritized, and makes a significant difference on your well-being and the progression of your health throughout your life, and yet no one knows about it. And that is the fine print that I wanted to talk about now, because I have really been deep diving in, female medical health, and I'm just like shooketh about how much is just not explained or not discussed. And I just was like, I'm going to open this conversation up. I am going to be honest. I had 0 to none postpartum care after having both my kids, other than like I went through a private obstetrician. I obviously had like 5 days after each of my births in hospital because it was a private birth and I had a C-section. And then I had 2 midwife follow-ups. And then at 6 weeks, I went and saw my obstetrician. They were like, is everything all good? I was like, yeah, I think so. That was about it. I was never really told that I should be doing anything else other than that. I have now learned with my scar that if I had gone and seen like a women's health physio or like someone who's specialized in like, postpartum C-section scar healing, like I probably wouldn't have as much pouching as I did, because, I would have been taught to massage it as it was healing, and then that would have reduced, that. I've also, through the process of being diagnosed with PMDD, gone and seen like a specialist GP who, specializes in women issues, and a specialist gynecologist, and learned a lot about, many things to do with my period that I never knew was a thing. And I was like, when were we meant to be taught about this? And this is coming from someone whose mother was very proactive. Like, she was a nurse, so she was very open about the way the body worked. I was given books. I was answered every question under the sun when it came to like how bodies work, how my period works. Like, I thought I knew a lot when it came to my period, and going through the PMDD process has made me realize that I actually know little to nothing about my period, my hormones, and how everything around that sort of works. And I think this is an issue that a lot of women start to have later in life, where, we might start having menstrual issues, maybe perimenopause, menopause. Like, there's all these things that pop up, and then it kind of humbles you to be like, hey, I actually know so little about how the way my body actually works. Like, learning about PMDD and why it happens. It's your body doesn't produce estrogen in the right way. And so then you can end up having big issues because you have a significant drop in estrogen. It's very common with people who have ADHD because, people with ADHD, women with ADHD use estrogen to help them create dopamine and serotonin naturally. Anyway, through that process, I've done a lot of tracking of my period, a lot of understanding like hormonally what is actually happening in my body as a woman during that process. I have had lots of swabs, lots of tests, lots of bloods, lots of understanding like, oh, you know, in pregnancy, actually your copper significantly rises and that can significantly decrease your zinc. So then you might actually be feeling depressed because you've got a zinc deficiency. And I'm just there like, what? If I was not a medical professional, I was not going through this process, how are we meant to have known this? And I think it's really just brought to the forefront for me that it needs to be like not PMDD, like not everyone has PMDD, but just the way the female body works and everything that goes into it needs to be something that is more talked about and more prioritized for young women, because I thought like our generation were doing well, and I have been humbled by how much we still don't know. And like, I'm not a medical professional. I can't tell you everything that has to do with, you know, the female body and the checks we should be doing and risk factors and blah, 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 blah. But the fine print that I wish I knew was that when it comes to being a female and us having quite complex bodies and health needs, there are going to be challenges that we all face throughout our lives. I think it is unfortunately just part and parcel of the body, especially when you start throwing kids and pregnancies and all of that into the mix. You start realizing how bloody powerful and strong the female body is, but it's very complex. And we should be looking into it more and learning about it more and prioritizing it more, because then otherwise you can end up having a lot of built up physical health challenges that are very hard to undo, which is something that I am going through now. Yeah, I'm going through a season right now where I've been really prioritizing, learning about my cycle. I'm at the moment on a cycle syncing deep dive, which has been really fascinating actually, and learning about how the different hormones work and how that can help us. I got an Aura ring mostly so I could really intensely track my cycle through the Natural Cycles app, which has been great for heaps of info and learning is on there. You get it through like notifications and it tells you like when you're in certain parts of your period, and that's been really fascinating. I've been really focusing on fixing my posture as well, which has just disintegrated after, I'm hypermobile, and then I have had 2 C-sections, breastfed 2 babies. I had a back injury in one of my births, and then just like being a stay-at-home mom, having kids on my hip all the time, blah, 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 blah. I really have such poor posture now. I have been trying to prioritize like resting and taking my medication. Like I'm on an estrogen gel, I'm on Vyvanse, I'm on Prestique because I had postpartum depression. Like there is just so much that I have gone through and experienced in a health scheme that I am shocked that I didn't know. And then when I try and talk about it with other people, with other women, they don't know, which is just crazy to me, because I'm like, why is no one stomping up and down about these problems more and like talking about this more? Because female health is extremely under-researched and underfunded. And I think it's because none of us are freaking talking about it, or we're not talking loudly enough about it. And I think it's crazy that when you start broaching on these topics in a group of women, you will start seeing that so many are going through heaps of crazy health challenges that we are not talking about. Which also kind of leads me on to the second fine print that I wanted to kind of talk about today, and that is emotional fine print, and the realization I have definitely had in the last year, especially how emotionally complex becoming an adult is. And really the biggest thing that has brought this to light for me has been divorce and co-parenting. And I guess when you take away all the glitz and glams and fluff and feathers, protecting my children. I have done very hard work over the last 12 months to emotionally protect my children in so many different ways. And it has really made me realize as adults how nothing that we go through is black and white, how everything is gray and everything is complex and everything is nuanced. And I didn't really comprehend that at all. And I feel like maybe you don't as a person until you go through really hard things like, I've gone through divorce or grief or loss or really significant financial hardship, or I don't know, there when you start realizing like, oh my gosh, being an adult's really hard, and there are lots of emotions and things that I have to suppress and shelter because maybe I have kids that depend on me, or I've got, a big job that depends on me. And I guess that has really shocked me. And then when I've gone to maybe older people in my life and been like, hey, like, is this, like, did you do this for me when I was a child? Like, talking to my mom, or like, did you know about this? Or like, how am I meant to, deal with the emotional struggle of this? Maybe it's, for example, like I have a lot of upset towards my ex-husband, but when I'm around my kids, I never say anything negative about my ex-husband because I think it's inappropriate. I think it's unfair on my children. And I just am a big believer that adult problems should stay adult problems. But it's really complex when you feel maybe grief or anger or upset towards a person, and then in front of your children you're making out like, oh my God, isn't dad the best? And you're so lucky. And like, he is a great dad. I always say this publicly. He's a great dad. I cannot fault him in terms of being a father. He is very hands-on. He is very involved. I'm very lucky in that co-parenting capacity. But that's really complex to deal with those different parts of my brain. Actually, something I was like discussing in therapy just this week as I'm recording this is the idea of like, sometimes there are decisions I have to make, and the decision is, if I do X, that will make my children happy, but it will be detrimental for my own mental health. But if I do Y, that will put a lot of pain and strain and emotional struggle on my children, but it is the best choice for me. And then in my brain, I'm like, well, okay, then of course, like I've got to do the one that makes my children happy. But then I have another little part of me that's like, okay, but if I am constantly sacrificing my own mental health over and over and over and over again, well, I'm going to get burnt out. I'm going to get depressed. I'm going to go through, mental health challenges. And then ultimately that is bad for my children, and that's going to negatively impact them. Okay, taking in consideration all of those things, what is the right choice? Because when I break it down like that, it kind of seems like none of the choices are right and everybody loses. And then I want to have a little tantrum when I figure that out and be petulant and be like, that's not fair. That's not what I should be going through. Blah, 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 blah. This is the worst thing ever. And how could this be happening to me? And then I'm like, holy shit, is this what being an adult is? Is this what like all people are experiencing and going through? And is this why so many people are sad and grumpy and cranky? Because this is really freaking hard, and no one explained to me that like the older you get, weirdly you think it's going to be the more freedom you get, but it just ends up being like not, because you end up with all this responsibility and you end up with way more emotional intelligence and way more understanding of how things work, and it actually just makes things way more complex than you would think it would. I think it's really shocked me the older I'm getting and the closer to 30 I'm getting, is that like adulthood isn't just like going to work and paying bills. Like there is so much more that comes with it. There's boundaries, and there's breakups, and there's learning to live with uncertainty, and there's parenthood, and there's, risk, and there's failure, and there's stress and grief and loss. And there is so much emotional complexity that is going on. And I feel like as a group, a lot of us have gotten into the habit of like just like grey washing everything. And like when people are like, oh, how's life going for you? You're like, oh, everything's great. I think definitely social media is a huge culprit of this, like just, posting really good things. And trust me, I know, because I'm someone who tries to post a big varying range of things. And I've really learned, like, if you post too much negative, people get on your back and are just like, I don't want to hear about this. You're always complaining, or you're always blah, 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 blah. But then on the other hand, people are out there being like, why is no one talking about this? And it's like this really hard catch-22 that we're all going through. I got postpartum depression after I had my youngest, and that has led to me getting quite intensive therapy. And then during that time, I then went through a divorce. So I continued that intensive therapy on because I've gone through a lot emotionally. And sometimes when I'm having discussions with my therapist around really big concepts, like, you know, what I was sort of talking about before, like what's the right choice to make when I have responsibility and other people's emotions and my children that I'm taking into account, or if how am I meant to combat society's ideas around productivity, because, always being productive and always being on is not sustainable, but it is something that I feel like is constantly shoved down all our throats. Or, in my childhood, I didn't create healthy attachment styles. And so now I'm having issues, and I was talking to my therapist about this and like all of these big concepts and kind of being like, if I don't pay like $270 to you to learn this, when are we meant to learn this as adults? Speaking of money, the last thing that I have learned so flippin' much about is financials. I really had little to no financial literacy. And this last year, I've had to build up so much. I've made mistakes, definitely. And there are things I've done that I'm like, ooh, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have made that decision or done that. I guess that is unfortunately part of the learning process. But one of the biggest things that I've kind of learned is there is a large amount of people that really don't know much about money. And that concept is crazy to me because for the last decade, I have had so much internalized shame around my financial literacy, what I knew about money, what I didn't know about money. And it really took me to this year. And when I have done so much work on money mindset, so much work on like what to do with my money, how to spend my money, how to save, budgeting. Like I have done so much hard work. And then when I've started talking to friends about it, learning that there are lots of people who aren't doing that work, which is so fun. Everyone can make their own decisions and do their own thing. But I kind of had this concept that everyone else knew how to save. And then I asked my friends the other day about like how much they had in savings or like how much they budget a month into savings. And like I learned every single other person at the table had little to no savings or didn't budget for savings. And I was like, oh, like obviously that's no judgment. There is a cost of living crisis right now, but I genuinely like used to internalize and beat myself up so much for not saving and not being good at savings and not feeling like I made enough money to have savings. And then I've realized like there are lots of people in that same boat. I used to not know anything about mortgages, not know anything about like debt or credit cards or anything to do with that. I used to not know how to pay bills. I didn't know about rates. I didn't know about electricity. I didn't know about investing. Like there is so much that I didn't know about that is so helpful in adulthood that we are not taught about. And yet we all internalize so much shame about not knowing these things. And we all bury our heads in the sand about these things and not understanding them and not knowing them. When in reality, they're actually really simple concepts. Now that I've dedicated time to learning about it and doing it and working on it, I'm like, oh wait, like this isn't as hard as everyone makes it out to be. This isn't as challenging as everyone makes it out to be. Like I understand this. I can understand this. Oh, wow. The fine print here is we are told, stay away, big scary topic. No one knows much about money unless you're, like a super rich, intelligent man. And turns out, nope. Turns out anyone can do it. Divorcee, ex-stay-at-home mom who had like nothing to her name, she can do it. She can do it. She struggles. She cries. At the beginning, she had to borrow a lot of money from family, but she got there in the end. She did it. She's doing it. I still haven't finalized my divorce, but I will continue to keep doing it. And there was so much information that wasn't taught to me in other ways that is just out there for free. For free. YouTube is free. Spotify podcasts, they're free. You don't need an accountant with a PowerPoint giving you like step-by-step instructions on like what interest rates are, and you don't need to pay someone like, lots and lots of money to be a financial consultant. Like obviously if you've got millions and millions of dollars, then yes, you got to find really smart ways to invest your money. But as two average Joes right here, you can figure this stuff out on your own. Money does not have to be like this big, super scary thing that is, unmanageable by anyone. All these little concepts that we get told are too hard and we can't do and we'll never know and we'll never understand. No, you can understand them. Trust me. I've gone and done it. You can understand it if you actually just back yourself, do some research, put some things in practice. Like, it can happen. And I really wish someone had told me that as like a freshly single mom, because I had so much freaking fear being like, oh my God, I'm an adult and I'm on my own now and I don't know anything about mortgages and I'm fine. It's fine. Because you know what? Amongst all of this, you know what I've really learned? Everyone in the beginning, like everyone in their 20s and like 30s, faking it. Everyone's just like guessing and doing their best. And that does not sound revolutionary. But when I tell you that has been one of the most revolutionary things I have realized in the last 12 months, I'm not kidding. Like, yes, people who are on the older end, like when I talk to my mom about like, I don't know, stuff like financial stuff or emotional stuff, usually she has a lot to know because she's got so much life experience, right? Or like any like older people, like people in my life who are a couple of generations older than me and I, respect what they have to say and teach me. But most people around our age, 98%, they're just faking it. They're just like plodding along, doing their best, trialing and erroring, and no one talks about it. No one talks about any of these things and no one shares about these like struggles and no one shares about like the little things they learn along the way because everyone wants to look like they know everything and they've got it all together. So they don't want to talk to you and be like, oh, I don't understand what that means. Or like, hey, did you know about this? Because I didn't know about this and then I learned this. Like I have found in adulthood that is so rare. And I'm so confused as to why. Like I'm so baffled why we don't share and yap more about these topics because it is so helpful. So my challenge is if you have a bit of adulthood fine print that you have come across and have solved, please leave it in the comments. I would love to know like little things that you're like, oh, I never realized in adulthood like I would be facing this because of X, Y, and Z. Like I would find that so interesting. Because, I feel like so many of us are just like, no, everything's fine over here and I know everything. I'm a big adult. Like I've got you know what is a big one? Like, oh, I've got kids. I'm a mum. I should know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I don't know what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm making a vow that I'm just going to be honest about it and be like, I am literally clueless, but I'm trying my best. And I think that's what matters. And when I have been more open about that, that is when I've learned the most things and improved the most. Alrighty, I want to end with bedtime story for the episode. In a couple of days, Benny is getting grommet surgery. Now, this is my second child to get grommets. I am a grommet family. There's no grommet history on my side. There is lots of grommet history on their dad's side. So they've both had challenges with, reoccurring ear infections. Rosie's was a bit more obvious because she had speech delay. Benny's has surprised me because her speech is so advanced and she's so advanced in anything to do with talking that I just would never even realize that she had any problems with her ears until this winter where no joke, we had an ear infection for like 2 months straight, 3 months straight. Like she was just on antibiotics after antibiotics after antibiotics that now we are getting grommets and I am actually dreading it. Because not anything to do with the grommet surgery, like it is not an intensive surgery by any means, but the anesthetic, like her getting put to sleep, I'm dreading it because with Rosie it was so heartbreaking. It is, I'm going to say it, I think one of the scariest things as a parent to go into a theatre with your child who's obviously spooked because they're like something's going on, all the adults are acting weird, what's happening here? Give them to a doctor, watch them go to sleep. And when Rosie was going to sleep, she was like, mommy, like crying for me. And then just having to like walk out of the room and leave your child in a room with like adults getting like a medical procedure. there is nothing more unnatural and terrifying and heartbreaking than doing that. And like, I'm so grateful that the surgery my child is going under for is just like very routine, very like fine dandy, non-invasive, very like unrisky, whatever. I couldn't imagine it for parents who have to do it when their child is getting like some significant surgery or something of the like. But I am having such extreme anxiety over the idea of having to go through that process again. I am really stressed about it. There's no moral of this story other than just sharing that like I'm feeling freaked out and I'm feeling stressed and I don't want to do it. And I guess this is like relating back to the adulthood thing. Like there are moments like this in parenthood where I'm like, I don't want to do it. Can someone else do it? Like, obviously, I just have to be strong, suck it up, get it done, and be the big girl with her big girl pants on. But man, are there times like this where I know that it's like going to be confronting and sad for me, and she's going to be stressed, and I don't want her to go through that stress where I'm just like, does this have to be something that I have to be responsible for? Which is really funny. Which is like a strange thing with parenting is like you have a lot of moments like that where you realize a lot of parenting is just like sucking it up. It's just sucking it up, pushing through and getting it done. But yeah, we're now going to be a 2-grommet child household. Lots of earbands and lots of earplugs in this household, but that's okay. I'm just kind of excited for her not to have blocked ears and complaining about her ears all the time. So if you are listening to this bedtime story, please wish us luck for her surgery in a couple of days and wish us that everything goes all right. I don't share a lot of stuff about my kids, like especially medically online anymore, but I feel like grommets is like there's nothing really that private about, hey, she's just got a little tube in her ear to make, it drain properly. So I thought it would be okay to share this one and ask you guys to give me all the big girl vibes, big girl mummy pant vibes that I'm not a little sookie cry la la mess when she goes down for surgery, although I know I will be. I know I'll sob. I sobbed so hard with Rosie. I'm just, preparing myself. But if I go quiet on social media or if when is this getting posted? I think the surgery is a couple of days before this is posted. So if I'm quiet before this has been posted, just know I've been dealing with a little surgery dolly. And that is the episode for the week. I don't even know how long we've gone for, but it's funny. I feel like I haven't even taken a break now. Now that I'm like filming a couple of episodes and getting back into the swing of things, I'm like, oh my God, I remember this. This is so much fun. This is so easy. I love doing this stuff. So thank you for joining me for another week. Of course, I will be back next week and we have After Dark next week as well. The After Dark topic is drunk disasters. And I have asked for you guys to send in your drunk disasters to the UPB hotline or I have put a Google form in the Instagram bio. You can do either or, but if you have a very funny or weird or just like interesting drunk story, I would love to hear it. I'm going to be sharing some of mine and we're all going to have a good little laugh and lull about, times before we were mums and we could actually get drunk and then be hungover the next day. Lil. All right. I love you all. I'm going to love you and I'm going to leave you. Sweet dreams.